So today, we're going to break down 5 key lessons from someone who managed to make his first $1 million by the age of 26. But here's the kicker. He's convinced that if he had known these lessons from the start, he could have gotten there way, way sooner.
So yeah, we're talking about that big, life-changing milestone, $1 million. And get this, he did it by age 26. Now, that's a huge achievement for sure, but the real story here, the thing that's actually useful for us, isn't just what he did, but what he learned along the way.
So that brings us to the central question, right? What if you could do it even faster? What's the playbook for accelerating that journey? Let's dive into the 5 big lessons he learned that could have literally saved him years of work.
Okay, let's jump right into lesson number 1. And this first one is, well, it's everything. It's the foundation for the entire journey. You have to set the right goal from the get-go.
You know, for most of us, the path to getting rich seems kind of fuzzy and slow, right? The default plan is pretty clear. Get a good job, like a doctor, buy a few houses, and then, eventually over a very long time, you'll get rich.
Then, this one book came along and just completely blew that whole idea out of the water. We're talking about the 4-Hour Workweek. It introduced this mind-bending concept of the new rich, people who value time and freedom right now, not just a pile of money when they're 65. And this is such a great way to see that shift in thinking. Instead of putting your life on hold for 40+ years, the new goal is all about designing a life you want to live today by building businesses and assets that give you that freedom.
So here's the crucial point. Getting to that millionaire status young, it's not something that just happens by accident. You have to make financial freedom an intentional, explicit goal. It's like once you name it, once you decide that's the target, your brain just starts seeing all these opportunities you were blind to before.
Okay, so that leads us perfectly into lesson number 2. If financial freedom is the destination, what's the actual vehicle that gets you there?
Think about it. Our entire education system is basically designed to train us for jobs. And in a job, you're a component. You're a cog. A really important one, maybe, but still just a cog in someone else's giant machine.
But when you have a business, you own the whole machine. And when you're trying to build wealth quickly, the person who owns the machine is the one who gets rich. So if you want to become a millionaire in your 20s, the path is pretty much non-negotiable. You have got to start your own business.
And look, the good news is, starting a business isn't some impossible dream. It's actually way more accessible than you'd think. It pretty much boils down to one of 3 main types. You could offer a service, make a product to sell, or even build a business around content.
All right, next up, we've got lessons 3 and 4. And you really have to think of these two as a pair. They work together like a 1-2 punch. It's not just about what you're doing, but how you're doing it. So let's kick off with number 3.
So lesson 3, have a strong bias to action. Seriously, you learn how to build a business by actually trying to build one. But, and this is a huge but, action by itself isn't enough. And that leads us straight into lesson 4. You have to supplement all that doing with learning from people who've already figured it out. Think of it this way. Action is the engine, but learning is the high-octane fuel.
And honestly, this was his single biggest mistake, his biggest regret. He burned years trying to figure everything out on his own, just totally overwhelmed, because he had no idea that playbooks for things like sales, marketing, and hiring already existed. They were all out there, in books, podcasts, and courses, and learning that sooner would have saved him so much time.
All right, time for our 5th and final lesson. So, you've got the goal, you've got the vehicle, you've got the method. But what's the one thing that's going to keep you in the game when things get tough? It all comes down to mindset.
Yeah, just look at this timeline. This was not an overnight success story, not even close. We're talking 13 years from that first attempt at making money online to hitting that first million. It was a slow, steady, compounding climb over a really long time.
And this quote from Gary Vaynerchuk just nails it. It's this perfect paradox you have to live by. You've got to be incredibly impatient with your actions, like get stuff done today, but have supreme, almost unbelievable patience when it comes to seeing the results.
So how on earth do you stay patient for a decade? Well, here's the secret. You don't. You can't just force yourself to be patient. The only way you'll stick with it is if you make the journey itself genuinely fun. If building and learning and solving these puzzles is more exciting to you than just zoning out on your phone, you're never going to want to quit.
Okay, so let's tie this all together. Here's your 4-pillar playbook.
First, the goal. You have to intentionally target financial freedom. Second, the vehicle. Your own business is the machine that gets you there. Third, the method. You need that mix of a bias to action, but you're also constantly learning. And finally, the mindset. You got to have that supreme patience with the results, and the only way to do that is to make the whole journey fun.
Because at the end of the day, that's what it all comes down to, isn't it? The key is to not stop. And that leaves us with the single most important question you need to answer for yourself. What kind of journey, what kind of work would be so much fun for you that stopping just isn't an option?